Friends, I have the biggest butterfingers. I meant to move something on my screen and somehow I kicked myself out and just stopped the broadcast. Welcome. If this is one of your first times watching my videos, welcome. This happens a lot. I kick myself out of my own studios. I stop videos on accident all the time. It's the way things work here. So welcome back. Okay. Take two. Okay, so we're talking about fucking with ancestors. Okay, recently I said in a video that there are certain protocols I follow, certain standards and boundaries. We're talking about spirituality and ancestors and videos. I say a message about like, tell me more about this and why it's important. And I appreciate those questions. I appreciate getting those questions, and I appreciate that people are open to discover. And one of the things that I see in spiritual circles, and we see this in all industries, but I'm specifically in spiritual circles and coaching circles. And sometimes, yes, I sort of get pulled into activism and feminism, even though I don't identify that way. And so I noticed that we can tend to say, this is what's right and this is wrong. This is what's right and this is what's wrong. And there's many degrees of how and perspectives of how we can look at spirituality. And so I would just tell you personally, for me, how I deal with and the reasons why I may or may not interact in a conversation about spirituality. So if you're just joining me now or in the replay, give me some hearts, some likes. Let me know in the comments where you're coming from, a word about your day. Okay. So the perspective here. Now, I follow West African spiritual. Oh, thanks for the hearts. West African spirituality that is in my blood. That is my spiritual family. That is where I'm initiated and who I study with, and have been shown myself many times, and continue to study and have some lifetime agreements and commitments to that, and so on and so forth. And what I was starting to learn before I got into that study and accepting those things into my life, and was confirmed and validated when I started studying in that way and practicing my life that way, was that there is this sort of spiritual hierarchy as far as gatekeepers, and as far as like the mysteries, and as far as access to different powers, your potentials you're born with, and what you can be initiated into in different ways. There's all these layers, and there's even within a family itself, that you might all be in a spiritual family. You'll have like the brother and sister will have these potentials and this wisdom, and the other brother and sister over here might not at all. They might have a different path, right? Even though they're all related and all probably in the same spiritual family. And I learned from my elders also that in my practice, it's about purity, cleanliness, protection. Purity, cleanliness, protection. I could just say purity and protection. Purity and protection. If somebody's coming at you and it's like, wow, and they're sending stuff at you, and it's not about like getting them back. It's always about cutting the bond, letting it go back to naturally it's going to go back to that person. Cutting the bond, let it go. Protection, let that go back to the person. Clean myself if something touched me, let it go back to the person. Okay, so I'm just giving you conceptually sort of like my experience and why I'm saying some of these things that I've been being asked about. And one of the things that my elders really made clear to me is that you do not know everything about someone's spiritual family, whether they're aware of it or not. You don't know what spirits or ancestors that they're dealing with, that they're being plagued upon by. They might have an incubus attached to the, what we would say an incubus. They might have a demon or incubus attached to them. They might come from a very powerful spiritual family and are very aware of it. They might come from a very powerful spiritual family and are not aware of it, but they have ancestors and spirits who have imbued them with certain powers and gifts that they're using left and right, and they don't even know that they're using them left and right. There's so many combinations, okay, that can be out there. And to be honest, in 2020, in a time where we're at the end of the world and the beginning of the new one, we've gone through a crowning process. We're about to twist. We're moving into a time of a lot of pressure, and some astrologists will tell you we're in Scorpio season, which is go look up more about what that means. That's not my expertise, but I read about it and I've heard about it and I get it. We're in a time of a lot of pressure. We're in a time where we're about to make a big this revolution that we're in is a big revolution, so lots of movement. And also we're in a time where the veil is pulled way back. We can see everything. And also our ancestors and our spirits didn't, as far as our perceptions, our different dimensionality of perception, seeing them, feeling them, understanding wisdom that comes from them, all of that is much closer. We're able to perceive a lot more. That's why all over the world, and all over the world right now, there's a lot of practices around honoring the dead. Okay, that's this time of the year. On top of that, we're in the middle of a spiritual war. And that also shows up as a psychological war. Everybody is digging into who am I and what am I here for and what is this pain and how do I deal with it? And I thought something was good that maybe isn't good. Right? I mean, I know there are people watching. Let me know in the comments, what, even if it's not you, which it is you, it probably is you. It's also everybody else around you. We're seeing it everywhere in every structure, right? And so the things that my elders were saying was like, you don't know, it could be somebody who is selling, something on the street, oranges on the street, and they might have some of those powerful spiritual power. They might have ways to twist someone's life or bless somebody's life. You don't know, compared to somebody who looks clean and has it all and is beautiful, and what they might not really have very much power at all. They might be conscious of it or not. And so it's important to be not only protective of yourself, but also humble in how you interact with each other especially in a time where there's like charged energy, and especially in a time where people seem to be fighting each other. I know you're on the internet, watching me on the internet, so I know that you also perceive this like Jerry Springer thing that's going on the internet right now. This gaslighting, this fighting, this, using oppressor tools against each other, all of that, right? You see what I'm saying? Let me know. I can't tell because I'm using StreamYard, so I can't tell who's like here. Let me know in the comments, thumbs up or whatever. So what's really important here is that to consider that if you are getting in fights, if you are finding conflict, to be very careful how you tread, because you're not just dealing with that person, you are dealing with that person. You're dealing with some spirits and some ancestors, no matter what their relationship is. You're dealing with a person who's wielding a spiritual power at you. Sometimes we call it energetic exchange, whatever. They might send something at you that starts roots on you that can go on for 10, 11, 12 years, the rest of your life, going down into your family line, into your descendants, or up into your ancestral line, into a different dimension. It's really important to understand that part of the structures of our interactions with ancestors is that before us, for everybody, this is true for everybody, we all had indigenous practices somewhere in our family line. Doesn't matter what color you are or where you're from. At some point, we had those interactions with spirit and the people, our ancestors that came before us. Okay, we have these relationships because, we are our ancestors. We were made by our spirits and ancestors. We had relationships with these, with other dimensional beings. And what you see in these old spiritualities is structures of relationships, human relationship, your family's relationship, your blood's relationships to and their ancestors, the ones that came before them, and their spirits. Those relationships have been forged over time. There are warriors, there are builders, there are revolutionaries, there are people who intend no good, and there are people who have the deepest hearts and souls and want the very best for you. And now a lot of us don't grow up in culture where we understand these relationships. Some of us are just like opening the door right now and we're like, oh my God, I have access to this. Where do I go and what do I do? Okay, I'll stop there for a minute. Are you with me? Give me thumbs up heart. Are you with me? Because I can go on forever. I was about to go on a whole different tangent. Okay. So even if you haven't been practicing in your line, and probably not as far back as you think, in your line, those structures, those relationships with spirits and ancestors have been forged, and they used to be taken care of, right? Maybe you are somebody who's still taking care of it now or just learning to. I know I certainly had to learn to, the first in my family for many, 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 many years, right? And because of that, if you hear me say like, I'm not going to, get in a fight with this person about this spirituality, or this person is, there's a conflict here. I'm not going to send something to them or wish something bad on them, or, whatever it is, because I know that I am dealing not just with a person, but I'm dealing with a whole congregation. I'm dealing with their warriors. I'm dealing with their revolutionaries. I'm dealing with the mothers and their fathers and their sisters and brothers. I'm dealing with all of this. And on a different note, if I'm talking about spirituality, I'm talking about not just that line. I'm talking about that if many ancestors and spirits who have been forging those relationships with humans for many years in a group, a spiritual family of humans that are on Earth right now, and I'm saying, that's wrong, that's not good, screw you. And I'm talking about spirituality right here, right now. I'm not talking about the dogma of religion or the structures of specific religions. I'm talking about spirituality, spiritual practices, that come from within. Okay, there's a whole spectrum of that. That's a whole other video of what that means and what's legitimate and not all of that. But the reason I'm saying is be careful when you are interacting with people, because it's not just like, a spirit that shows up and like makes you crash your car. We're talking about these relationships that are millennia old. You see what I'm saying? So when you hear me in a video, and I've said it, I've been talking about this for years now. When you see me say in a video, like, when you fuck with somebody, you're fucking with their ancestors, or when you're talking about spirituality, like be careful of exactly what you're talking about and how you're interacting with it, because you're talking about like a bigger structure than we can really even fathom in our minds. Does that make sense? Do you dig? Do you see what I'm saying? So that with the layer that we're in this time where spirit is walking so close to us, where this is the time of the year where all over the world people tend to honor the dead and speak to the dead more. This is a really sensitive time. And as I said before, Scorpio season, which many of you know what that means, and I sort of know what it means, but look into it. This is the time of year to be more gentle first with yourself, but also be gentle with the people around you. To be mindful about when we're talking about other people's spiritual structures. To if you see the conflicts going on when people are talking about spirituality, look and see, really analyze it and be mindful of it and see what's below the surface that's going on. And quite frankly, if you see a spiritual fight about spirituality, I would stand way back. Because our ancestors and our spirits do walk with us, sitting with their matter and their mass, whether we're able to perceive it or not. Sometimes, a lot of the time, most of the time, is right here. And if you find yourself getting heated, right, in a conversation with somebody, if you find yourself just you're like, you have to say something, you have to do something, all of that, then remember that you have a congregation, you have a group that is sitting with you. And when you see that other person, and I highly suggest this, when you see that other person, even if you're typing online, see the other person as a human being and remember that they are sitting with a congregation, a lot of people, just imagine a lot of people around them, because that really is what's going on. So to answer your question, I know I kind of went around circles a little bit, but I keep remaking this video, so I will talk about it again. Let me know how it's landing for you in the comments here before I go. This is why I wanted to let you know that this is why when spirituality comes up in a conversation, especially when it's a charged conversation, this is why I'm very careful, because I don't know that person's intentions. I don't know who they're working with or not working with. There are so many things in spirituality I don't understand. I sat with some of the oldest, people were just, we don't know how old they were. The last time we knew, they're 120, old priests who have been living in temples, and this is what they do for their life. And that's what their parents did. And that's what their parents did. And they say, I don't know. They say, we'll have to find out. If we can find out, let's go ahead, So just remember that you don't know. Okay. So be careful, take care of yourself. So, I wanted to tell you that I will be speaking more on adjacent subjects about this, and talking about spiritual inclusion and colonialism, because that has been a big part of my journey, especially in the last, since I moved to the United States when I was 15, but also in the last 7 years. And in the last couple of years, it's just you've been hearing these words: spiritual inclusion, colonialism, decolonization, all of this. I'll be talking about that at the Disruption Unconference that is happening from the 18th to 20th of November. Get your tickets now. Okay, get yourself an early Christmas present, or if whatever you might celebrate, get yourself an early present. And if you want to go and you can't quite swing it, just send me a DM, and I might have an option for you. This conference is all the subject I'm talking about now. This conference is all about breaking down the bullshit that we see in our breaking down the bullshit that we see in the coaching circles, the healing circles, and self-empowerment, really getting down to the gritty about all this stuff. There's a lot of powerful women coming to this conference. It's thrown by Brigette. I don't want to say her name wrong, the middle name wrong. Brigette Iarrusso Soto. I'm so sorry, Brigette, if I said your middle name wrong. But I will link her in this video as well. And even if you're just I don't know if I can handle it, go look at the page and then decide later if that is something that you might kind of be drawn to, because this is going to be a really powerful 3 days. And I look forward to seeing you in the panel as we dive deep into this, some of the subject that I was talking about just now. So that's it. I just wanted to give you this this little download that comes from me. And again, I acknowledge that all different teachers teach all different ways and have different perspectives, and you should go out and grab from wherever you can and then decide for yourself, right? Okay, so blessings. May you have peace. Take good care of yourselves. Say a prayer with your ancestors, and that's it. Mwah. Okay, bye.